I always should share what my experience was watching Srila Prabhupada chant Jaya Radha Madhava. It's quite different from my chanting. It appeared to me every time I saw Srila Prabhupada that he was in a trance of samadhi on the Vyasasana. And in that trance, his soul, the Prabhupada soul that we consider Shakta-Vaishavatar's special soul, was both in the Prabhupada body on the Vyasasana, and in that trance, he had gone to Goloka Vrindavan, and every word of Jai Radha Madhava, he was experiencing and participating, and every now and then, somehow, he would open his eye just to see if everyone was chanting, then immediately close his eyes, go back into this trance. So that's how I observed Srila Prabhupada in samadhi, traveling to Goloka Vrindavan right in front of my eyes. Well, of course, I couldn't see, but I could perceive that's what was happening. I could tell by the way his expression and body was, and the eyes, tears, every part of him. That doesn't happen in the material atmosphere. Hare Krishna. So, remembering that and following in his footsteps, his order is to chant this together. Hare Krishna. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janna Ballabha Girivaradari Gopi Janna Ballabha Girivaradari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janna Ballabha Girivaradari Gopi Janna Ballabha Girivaradari Yashodanandana Prajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Prajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivaradhari. Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Braja Janarandana. Yashodanandana Braja Janarandana. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Excuse me. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramhanta Paravrajaka Astu Tarasata Sri Srimad. His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Anantakoti Vaishnav Vrinda Ki Jai. Nama Acharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Shri Gaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Sisi Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shamakund Radha Kund Gira Govardhan Ki Jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Shri Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Excuse me. Jamuna Mai Ki Jai. Ganga Mai Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Sri Mati Tulsi Maharani Ki Jai. Transcendental Sankirtan Yagya Ki Jai. Transcendental Book Distribution Ki Jai. Transcendental Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Gaura Premanandi Haribol. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to you, Srila Prabhupada. Thank you very much, Srila Prabhupada. Namo Vishmaya Krishna Vishtai Putale Sivate Bhaktivedanta Samadhi Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gaunavani Pachane Namisation Vadi Praschachate Satane. And Vancha Kalpa Tarubias Cha, Kripa Sindhu, Vyaeva Cha, Patitanan, Pavanebhyo, Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Hare Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna. Thank you for tolerating. Hare Krishna. So this morning, we start chapter 10 of the third canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. This chapter is titled Divisions of the Creation. And today we're reading text 1, which does not have a purport. And then together, text 2, which does. So, text 1, Vidura uvāca, antarhite bhagavati, Brahmā loka-pitāmahaḥ, prajāḥ sasarja, katidhā, daihikīr, mānasīr, vibhuḥ. Translation, Śrī Vidura said, "O great sage," that's to Maitreya, "O great sage, please let me know how Brahmā, the grandfather of the planetary inhabitants, created the bodies of the living entities from his own body and mind after the disappearance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead." This is so amazing, we can repeat this together. Śrī Vidura said, "O great sage, please let me know how Brahmā, the grandfather of the planetary inhabitants, created the bodies of the living entities from his own body and mind after the disappearance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead." So now text 2. Ye cha me bhagavan pṛṣṭās, tvayy arthā bahuvittama, tan vadasvānupūrvyeṇa. Let me say this again. Tan vadasvānupūrvyeṇa, chindhi sarva-saṁśayān, ye cha me bhagavan pṛṣṭās, tvayy arthā bahuvittama, tan vadasvānupūrvyeṇa, chindhi sarva-saṁśayān. Prabhus. Another Prabhu? A Mataji, please. After this. Okay, now a Mataji tribe, but loud. Thank you. Thank you. So now the word meanings for this text. Yea, all those, cha, also, may, by me, bhagavan, O powerful one, pṛṣṭās, inquired, tvayy, unto you, arthā, purpose, bahuvittama, O greatly learned one, tan, all of them, vadasvānupūrvyeṇa, kindly describe, anupūrvyeṇa, from beginning to end, chindhi, kindly eradicate, na, my, sarva, all, saṁśayān, doubts. So in a minute I'm going to ask you, what are these doubts? Someone has to help me to understand from our perspective. He's speaking to Brahmā, and he's saying, I have all these doubts. So we have to, what are those? But first, translation and purport. O greatly learned one, kindly eradicate all my doubts, and let me know of all that I have inquired from you, from the beginning to the end. So again, this is after he said, O grandfather of planetary inhabitants, how did Brahmā, or about Brahmā, how did he create the bodies of every living entity out of his own body and mind? And now, I want to hear this from the beginning to the end. I have doubts. You need to remove my doubts. Okay, purport. Vidura asked all relevant questions of Maitreya because he knew well that Maitreya was the right person to reply to all the points of his inquiries. One must be confident about the qualification of his teacher. One should not approach a layman for replies to specific spiritual inquiries. I want to just pause there for a second. He's asking about how do all the living entities get their bodies, and Prabhupada is specifically saying that that's a spiritual inquiry. The whole world thinks of it as a material inquiry. Whether it be, how does the first cell come out into being? How does a cell turn into some living entity? How does that living entity have a body that changes, evolves, morphs into a different species of body? Everyone thinks of this as a material science, a material inquiry. But Prabhupada is saying, no, this is a spiritual inquiry, how you get a body. So we have to remember that. One should not approach a layman for replies to specific spiritual inquiries. Such inquiries, when replied to with imaginative answers by the teacher, are a program for wasting time. That's as gentle as Prabhupada's ever been. These people, whether they be scholars, academics, teachers in schools, scientists in the fields of biology and chemistry and anthropology and astronomy and cosmology, all of those learned persons are replying to this question with imaginative answers. And here Prabhupada said, holding back his normal adjectives, they're wasting our time. So, let me just say, Om Gyanti Manandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshushtun Militan Jaina Tasmai Śrī Vidura. So, when I first learned of the secondary creation means starting with Brahmā. Primary creation is before Brahmā. So we're up to secondary creation in this chapter. So when I first started to read and learn about secondary creation, being a conditioned soul and always trying to measure everything as if I was Dr. Frog in a well, always trying to measure everything from my bodily perception, I said, okay, Brahmā is taking all these amazing ingredients of matter, and he is manifesting 14 planetary systems. So I thought about that as just straight geography. Like as if there's a straight line from the top of the universe down to the bottom, and as if you could measure the distance between one planetary system and another in a linear way. That's how I envisioned it. And in fact, some of our artists even painted it like that. So how else would you show 14 different planetary systems? There's so much more to what Brahmā had to do before he got to creating out of his body and mind all the bodies for every living entity. First, there had to be a place for every living entity to be. So that's the manifestation of the planetary systems. But these planetary systems are not simply physical higher levels. This is a consciousness-centered universe. The central feature of this universe is not an atom or a subatomic particle. The central feature of this universe is not something that they have said, they have called, and many of you would not know what this even means, dark matter. They have this label for what fills all the space in between perceivable space and perceivable matter. It's not working according to theories of motion and gravity and so on. Something great is missing, and they have postulated with this imaginative answer that there's something called dark matter that makes it all work. But actually, if you try to pin down the topmost cosmologists, scientists, whatever, and you ask them, please don't tell me how gravity works. Tell me what it is. Don't tell me how dark matter works to fit into the gravity theories, so that when I was young, I used to think, why are these gigantic planets and stars? They weigh trillions and trillions of tons. I don't know if you use that word in India, tons. What do you use in India? Kilograms? Trillions upon trillions of... How is that not just falling? That was a very simplistic question I used to ask. How is it not falling? Because I had this very linear, limited concept of a universe. It's just a top and a bottom, so anything in the middle just is going to fall unless something's holding it up. But science has actually studied how material energy works up to a certain degree. And they can understand to a certain extent why these gigantic planets are not falling. In fact, the way they look at things, there's nothing to fall to, because they're in motion, being pulled by gravitational forces, supplemented by dark matter, which keeps them in their orbits and their spaces. And I am not advanced enough in material science to explain this any further other than to say, in the night sky, when you look up, they're not all falling down. The stars and planets, they're not all falling down. Something is holding them up. Okay, so that something is manifest by Brahmā. Before he can create the bodies of the living entities, there has to be a place for these bodies to be placed and exist. So now we come to this 14 levels. And it's not, as I said, just simple geometry or simple measurement from top to bottom. These levels follow the principle of the universe itself, namely, the central energy, the central force of the entire universe is an all-pervading consciousness. This is a consciousness-based science. So when we try to, from here, down on this earthly plane, when we try to imagine what Brahmā is manifesting, these planetary systems are very specifically designed for totally different levels of consciousness. It's not just geography. This is incredible. We understand our consciousness in our human body, and we try to imagine the consciousness in a beast. It's hard to imagine, but we try to study a little bit the consciousness of ants, or I don't even know how we get to trees, bushes, aquatics, but we have our limited plane, and we are trying to project based on our experience of consciousness. Higher realms of consciousness are, from where we are, 10,000 times greater consciousness. 10,000 times more illuminating consciousness. 10,000 times more intelligence from such consciousness. And that's not the limit. That's just one of the planetary systems, 10,000 times greater than here on Earth. Beyond that is truly unimaginable for human brains, that there could be consciousness 1,000,000 times higher, 1,000,000 times greater, 1,000,000 times producing greater intelligence, 1,000,000 times more, seeing and perceiving 1,000,000 times more than what we can perceive. Brahma has to create all these levels of consciousness, not just gross planetary systems. So this is the beginning of the study of the secondary creation. Before you get to the bodies of the living entities that are going to fit into all these different planes and planetary systems, they first have to manifest them. So we will stop here for the Bhagavatam part and see if there are comments, reflections, questions, challenges, additions, please, anyone. Somebody please have a microphone. I know devotees from yesterday were bringing up so many interesting points. There must be devotees with questions or comments. Anyone here? Right behind you, and then start working your way back, because the devotees in the front seem very shy today. Nobody's raising their hand like you have no thought on this. But okay.
It's from the previous classes.
By the way, you get one question today.
Okay.
Not a 3-part, 5-part.
Okay. So from previous classes, I had one doubt, whether Brahma, Vishnu and Mahesh, they are in the modes of material nature or not. Are they free from the modes of material nature? Brahma and Lord Shiva.
Okay, so just so I understand what you've said so far, you're asking how the 3 modes of nature fit into this?
Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva are under material nature?
They're pure manifestations of the modes for the purpose of serving Krishna in the way that that mode is meant to serve the purpose of Krishna. I don't know if that's your question, though. If you say it very slowly, one word at a time, and maybe I'll get the question.
He was asking whether these demigods like Brahma, Lord Shiva, they are under the modes or how is it?
Everyone is under the modes. But Lord Shiva is not touched by the mode, although he is in charge of one of the modes. Okay? But yes, so far there's no demigods yet. We haven't gotten to that yet. All we've gotten to is Brahmā was, can you imagine if one day you were born, you woke up, you could think, and everything was completely dark, and you were totally alone for hours and days, and what we hear is thousands and thousands of earth years. You're all by yourself alone. Brahma's just come out of that condition. He was all alone trying to understand, what am I doing? What am I supposed to do? Who put me here? He's got a million questions. And he tries as hard as he can, based on his consciousness that he was born with, to call out to God, call out to the Supreme. Tell me what I'm supposed to do. Why am I here? Why am I all alone? Why is everything dark? How long is this supposed to be like this? No one can imagine what Brahmā went through. I can't. I think I would have had uncountable nervous breakdowns if I was the only soul in the universe and everything was dark. So anyway, we haven't gone to the celestial realms yet. We're just hinting at that they have to be manifest before anyone gets their body, including devas. We'll get to how they get their bodies and what role the modes of nature play in them. That's coming up in this chapter. Did you ever think there would be a book that would explain things like that? I can tell you that in the Western world, no one ever thought there would be a book that could explain this. So, who else had questions? Yes. Oh, Hare Krishna.
So, you just try to explain this type of discussion, Prabhupada said spiritual.
Yes.
So, could you explain how you can understand why this type of discussion is spiritual?
Why I said it is a spiritual inquiry.
Yeah.
And not a material inquiry,
yes.
Because what we have learned before this, way before this, from the beginning of Bhagavatam, from the beginning of Bhagavad Gita, from the Upanishads, from all the Vedic texts, what we learned is that matter does not, no type of matter moves, acts, grows, is sustained. None of the characteristics of matter, from the smallest subatomic particle to waves of energies to gross matter, none of that could happen unless it's touched by a different category of energy. By itself, matter is dormant. Only when it's touched by the superior energy, spirit, Brahman, only then can matter exhibit waves, energies, attractions to other material particles, and none of that happens unless there is the touch of spirit, which is why Prabhupada says ultimately science, without understanding that everything is a combination in the universe of matter and spirit together, without understanding the spiritual feature, everything is just imaginative waste of time, because it's not the reality. The reality is that spirit is moving matter. Spirit is providing the purpose. Who would ever think matter has a purpose? Spirit is bringing purpose to matter on every level, from the smallest subatomic level to the level of gigantic planets, the sun. There's no purpose without spirit touching matter. Matter in itself is not alive. Spirit is always alive. It was always alive. It didn't have a beginning. It will always be alive. It will never have an end. Spirit is the most amazing thing. There's no, I mean, even trying to imagine something that always existed and is filled with all this energy that's making everything around it function, that's incredible. Every soul is in that category of totally mind-blowing amazing. And we respect every soul because that's what you are. That's what you all are. I don't know if that is a good answer, but it's partial answer. Hare Krishna. So we have one more question, then we have to switch over to Kartik. Dear Mata, Hare Krishna.
Thank you. In this particular purport, Srila Prabhupada, in the last line, he says, it's a program for wasting time. Now, we are very fortunate that we are given this mercy of hearing from Srila Prabhupada, the pure devotee of the Lord. But the vast majority out there in schools, colleges, training places, workplaces, they're making inquiries and all they're getting is imaginative answers. So how can they also get this mercy? They're in the darkness of ignorance. What can be done about that? Thank you.
Is that not an super excellent question? Is that going to the whole purpose of why there is an international society for Krishna consciousness? Yes. Srila Prabhupada personally instructed that in this 10,000 year period, this golden age of Lord Chaitanya, in this Kali Yuga, there are two very special, great demons. One is, and they both begin with the word godless. Godless governments or government leaders, and godless teachers or sciences. And of these two demons in the age of Kali, the demon that you're asking about is the most potent, successful, insidious, controlling demon. Regardless of whether government leaders may believe in God or not, this other demon has taken over the curriculum of every school in the world. So from the youngest age, the human life is designed to inquire. It is the nature of having a human body to make inquiries. Who am I? What am I? What is my purpose? Why am I here? Why am I suffering? This is the nature of having a human body and mind, inquiries. Now, when the godless science takes the curriculum and presents it in every single school, it wasn't always like this, but this is the age of secularism, where they have said, we have to separate religion, which is a source of so many fights, with just secular science knowledge. Science is greater than religion. That is their premise. And it seems like the whole world has bought that premise. That's why it's in every school, in every text, in every curriculum. So, your question was, how do we ever counteract that? Well, first of all, we could spend the next 2 days just talking about Prabhupada's mission, getting empowered by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to remove from the earth nirvasesha and shunyavadi. There is a person that was sent into this world to get rid of that. That person is our Srila Prabhupada. And his teachings and his words and his books require study, further research, mass distribution of his teachings, and gradually light, darkness. It may seem darkness right now is winning, but if there's enough light, the darkness will recede. This is why in the very beginning, we became what some would say insanely fanatic book distributors. It was our life and soul. We couldn't think of anything else, but we have to give these books to everyone in every language throughout the whole world, because the books themselves, even if the person just holds it, even if he just reads the title, and as Prabhupada famously said, even if he reads one page, no, even if he reads one word, these books are filled with spiritual potency from the spiritual realm. This is the spiritual realm entering our material realm in the form of, it's an incarnation, this book. It's an incarnation of God. God is in these words. The revelation of God is in these books. And even if they read one word, and that's all they can do in this life, where will they begin when their next life comes? They're ready to read the second word. If you imagine this, project this over the next 200 years, people will be up to reading the whole volume. Money volumes. I mean, this is going to expand and transform humanity. The way Prabhupada started by going to the most uncivilized places in the whole earth, where all they have is intoxication addiction, sex addiction, flesh-eating addiction, gambling addiction, totally addicted souls who are all going to go into the lowest species after this human life. That's where Prabhupada chose to go. Those are the souls he targeted to save first. Somehow I was around at that time, undeserving, but everyone else, they were very deserving. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta and Lord Chaitanya sent these souls to help Prabhupada. And that's where he went. And from there, how many languages are our books in now? I mean, there's like, I was talking to one of the trustees yesterday, and just in his BBT division alone, he's got like 50, 60 languages. And that's not even in India. That's a European trustee. So anyway, the light of the Bhagavat is stronger than the darkness of this godless speculations. We just have to keep it entering and never stop. We don't retire in the way a normal person thinks of retiring. If we're physically unable to do book distribution, but I tell you, I see devotees here in advanced stage bodies that have never stopped distributing books. Never. I know a wonderful devotee in New York, Los Angeles. His body is older than mine. He's one of the biggest book distributors on the planet in his 70-something-year-old body. The desire to give this knowledge to the souls means you've taken the desire of God and made it your desire. And that's what he did. He knows this is what God wants. Therefore, please let it be what I want. And that prayer, over 50 years of praying while he's chanting his japa, that's all he thinks about, has empowered him so that in this way our movement will spread, the books will spread, this transcendental energy in these books, the spiritual knowledge in these books. And Prabhupada once wrote me, the nature of the spiritual energy is, it is always increasing. It is always expanding. How amazing is that? You give person one word, one thought. We've all seen this if we've preached to people that didn't know that they were not their body, and we first started telling them, you're not your body. That has a potency where 2 years later, if I ask them, what do you think is the soul? They give me a class on the Bhagavad Gita. It is expanded in their consciousness from the simplest starting point. And these are non-devotees that I know around the other half of the world. So anyway, we will be successful. Nirvasesha shunyavadi will be dispelled. So thank you for that wonderful question about how we never retire from Sankirtan and book distribution. So now we have to just say a few words about what's happening starting today. Why is this considered the most sacred of all months for Vaishnava devotees of God? Does anyone want to say even one thing about why this is our most sacred month, starting today? Anyone? I know that you're shy. You can't say you don't know anything about Kartik or what's special about it. Please. Anybody? Okay, Mataji? But we have to wait for the mic. Everyone needs to hear you.
This month is Radharani's month.
Very good starting answer. Yes, it is. Any other questions or thoughts about Kartik? Please. Yes. Wait for the mic. Go. No, right right here with the mridanga.
This is the month where Lord got bounded to his pure devotee.
Say it again slowly.
This is the month Lord personally got bounded to his pure devotee. He surrendered to his pure devotee. By Yashodama, he got bounded.
Okay, I want to make sure because I didn't bring my hearing aid. I apologize. Someone repeat. Like when Maharaj speaks, it's transcendental sound, but he also has a repeater. So give me the repetition.
This is the month where the Lord got bound by his pure devotee, Yashoda Mai.
All right, let's just pause right there. There's so many other things we can say about Kartik, but let's just talk about that Leela. In half the world at least, well, let me say it like this. In maybe 20% of the world, countries like China and so on, there's no belief in God, there's no back education that there's even a God. Okay, then you take another half of the world's human population. They have a specific conception of what God is or who God is. Amazingly, this conception entered into everyone's brain after an artist named Michelangelo painted what he thought God looked like. The oldest Adipu, oldest being, he must have very white, old-looking hairs on his face and head. Otherwise, how could he be the oldest? So, the world has this idea, God as a creator and a supreme emperor, ruler, and that relationship, even in the imperfect religions, is a combination of Shanta Rasa and Dasya rasa. They don't go beyond that. They do not understand that every part of us being a person came from God. It's in Him first. You being a child and the playfulness of being a child, that's inside God. You don't have something. We never have something that God doesn't have. That's the premise. There's nothing that we humans have that didn't come from and is not within God already. So we're little toddlers. We have parents. We cling to parents. We have natural affection for parents. That's a quality of love. If you multiply that 10 million times, that type of love is also in God. The love of being a little helpless child and having a parent that watches over you. If we can just think back to when we in this room were like 3 years old, 4 years old, 5 years old, how did you feel towards your mother? I don't even know if you can remember. It's hard for me to remember exactly. But sometimes I see devotee parents with little children. It reminds me of that natural affection that the child has, just spontaneous clinging to the mother or parent, or being guided by the parent, and the parent spontaneously, expertly guiding the child. So I watch this with our devotee parents and children, and it reminds me that that is one, I don't even know the math to say this, 1/billionth of a drop of that natural, amazing type of affection and instinct and love in the spiritual world between Krishna and his devotees who take the roles of elders. Nobody in the Western world, and mostly in the South Asian world, the Middle Eastern world, nobody ever heard of such things, that God could be a child. It doesn't make any sense to their mundane thinking. God has to be the greatest. How can he be a child? A child is never the greatest. So this is the gift of Srila Prabhupada to the whole world, that he is teaching the science of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. He is teaching the science of rasas between souls and God that go way, way beyond awe and reverence. The whole world, one day, and gradually it's increasing. You know how many temples we started with? 12, 1, then 12. Then by the time Prabhupada was disappearing, which is coming up in this month, we were up to about 125 temples. Anyone want to guess how many temples we have now in ISKCON? Take a guess. Shout out a number. At least 800 to 1,000 right now. Now, in another 20 or 30 years, the rate of doubling will require less time to double. There will be, eventually, within a couple of centuries, a ISKCON temple with deities in every town, every village, every city, of every country, of every continent. This is the way it's going to grow. And these temples and these deities, we're teaching people about what does it really mean that God is a person. How is it possible? You don't tell me God has a girlfriend. Come on. That makes no sense. Just like God's a baby. It makes no sense. We are teaching in such a profound way how it does make sense. In fact, it's the only way to make sense of human interactions, is to connected to, it had to begin with God, in his realm, with the souls he's surrounded with, because we cannot have anything that God doesn't have. We're not greater than God in any way. So, so this is the amazing part about the Damodar pastimes, which especially here will begin tonight between 6:45 and 7 p.m. tonight. Everyone, no matter what you're doing, you must come to the temple. You must light the candle. You must sing about baby Krishna in the Damodar Ashtakam prayers. You must meditate on each line and what it means. It starts tonight. And you get the most special mercy from Radha herself coming tonight. Please make sure. So, Prabhu, you had a question? There's so many more features of Kartik, but obviously thinking of God as a baby and having a mother is the most mind-boggling, as far as I can tell.
I just wanted to comment, just add to what you said, that God also has a big brother, which is pretty crazy to understand.
Oh, yes, he does.
Don't understand that.
Listen, we could spend days and days and days talking about Lord Balaram. But especially, we're going to stay focused on baby Krishna being naughty. God can be naughty? You told that to someone, they think you're crazy in the West. In a couple of 100 years, they will melt in ecstasy when you tell them that. We are spreading the absolute truths about Bhagavan, not just Brahman, or all-pervading consciousness in the universe, Paramatma. We are spreading the truths about Bhagavan in all of his relations, energies, loving affairs. This month especially, as much as I want to be a scientist for this museum, more I want to be mesmerized in the Leela of Krishna as a baby, and just try to really have that affect my heart, that's God also. Not just the universe, creation, it's so easy to be in awe, but you have to go way beyond awe to really understand God, what he likes. This whole universe, which is so awesome, as we said yesterday, God is resting, almost like dreaming, and with no effort, universes are appearing out of the pores of his skin. He's breathing out universes effortlessly. Remember that word, effortlessly. And we're in such awe of what that is. But is that what God likes the most, is just to manifest universes? We have to go further. This is the month to really go further in our hearts. Well, thank you very much for your association and letting me say a few words that I learned from Srila Prabhupada. Jai. Again, vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripasinubhyevacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Gaur Premanandi ki jai, great devotees ki jai. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
His Grace Ramesvara Prabhu ki.
Das. You don't